I'll start that again. Um, Welcome to another episode of Bigfoot Press. I have a very special guest who's with us, who has um, I've only known for a little while, but a very, very interesting man who has, um, and this is only one of many things I can gather from the short conversations that I've had with him, um, has served in our community, in particular our youth, for quite a long time. And I asked him if he could jump on the podcast and share some of his thoughts and his perspectives. And so I have with me, and I better get this right, Mike Mato. There we go.
Yeah.
Welcome, Mike Mato. How are you?
Nā kia ora, my brother. Tēnā koe, brother. O tira tēnā koe te whakarongo mai nei ki nei kōrero. I just wanted to send out a warm a greeting to everybody that may be tuning in, listening to these conversations. He mea nui tēnei, he mea whakahirahira tēnei ki te kōrero atu ki a koe te rangatira. Nā reira tēnā koe. It's a privilege to be able to come and, share some insights and maybe offer some light for other people that are experiencing things in life and may be able to derive a little bit from an old man like myself. So
Man, I really appreciate it, Mike, because I know I sprung this on you yesterday. Was it yesterday?
yes.
Yeah, yesterday. So I sprung this on you yesterday, and you weren't even aware that we would be doing a podcast. But just like every conversation we've had, I always walk away thinking, man, I feel like I'm talking to me. So it's like, it's an interesting feeling, like when you find somebody that views the world in the same way that you do. And so without getting too much into it in the beginning, I just want to thank you for coming along and sharing what you have to share today. We're going to start off pretty hard. I have a particular question that might take a little bit of time to deconstruct, but I want to just throw in some trivia questions, I guess, in order to warm you up, because it might be one that might take a bit of time.
Sure.
So the first question is, and this is you can answer this or you don't have to answer it. You can pass. What is the most expensive thing that Mike has at home?
Oh. Most expensive thing. That's a wonderful question. Given that I'm a man who was raised for very little, I value probably a friend's family above anything material. If I had to put my finger on one thing that is of a material nature, it's of worth some value in terms of monetary value, and then what it means to me personally, is my guitar.
Guitar.
Oh, listen, I've got a couple of guitars, a bass guitar. Music has been a dear and constant companion for most of my life in that sense. So probably that would be it, I'd say.
So how many instruments do you play?
I taught myself as a young age to just bang away on the drums. Guitar came after that. Bass came after that. In recent years, I've been fiddling around on keyboards, so I only play with ears. So to look and read tablature and notes, no good for me. But my ears can hear where we're going, so I'll have a little bit of play around there. So I think I've never just been, having grown up relatively poor in New Zealand, material wealth was never something that was around me in my life, and it's never ever been something that I've kind of wanted to chase after, to be totally honest with you.
All right. What's a destination or a place? What's the most interesting place or destination you've ever traveled to?
Yeah, that's a great question. as a younger man, my darling and I went over. We spent 6 months in America. At that age, it was more about wanting to go and see Michael Jordan play basketball.
Oh, really?
All that trip was about. However, there were we spent 6 weeks on a Amtrak train going throughout the whole country, and you're going from state to state, so you are starting to see the differences between people from state to state. So in that sense, really, we're not, apart from the sightseeing and everything like that, when you're sitting on a long distance train, you have opportunities to sit and talk with people and understand their world, their life.
Yeah.
And then you get a specific understanding of what that person experiences in that state. I'm coming over to the next one, I'm hearing something different. I think probably those 6 weeks and that experience would probably have been the most interesting.
Was there anywhere particular you went to in America? Or?
So we started in Los Angeles and made a bit of an arc around up through to Chicago, out to New York, down into Orlando. My darling wife has family in New Orleans. And then we just made our way back out to the West Coast, Las Vegas, San Francisco, Los Angeles.
Wow.
A lot of those places. And I won't lie, the initial impetus for that whole trip was just really, as a young man, I just wanted to go and see Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Allen
Did you get to see Michael Jordan?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think...
what year was it?
1997.
Oh, was it the three-peat?
That was the second three-peat that they were about to embark on.
96, 97, 98, or was it 90?
That was the 96. It was the 97, 98 season that we went to.
Wow.
That's correct. Yeah. So,
wow. How many games did you get to see?
So we took in a Chicago Portland game. Then we went over to Philadelphia and Washington, where we took in a 76ers, what was known as the Washington Bullets in those days.
Yep.
And we got lucky enough to see a rookie and a very young Allen Iverson walk out on the court.
Wow.
Which was always it's always a memory that I'll hold dear, because the guy walked right past me as he's coming out the aisle to go out to the court, and you knew you were looking at something, a talent that was quite special. You didn't know where it was going to go in the years to come, and obviously the record will show. We saw what we saw. He took his team to the finals, so he was pretty good.
Yeah, is he as tall as?
If I remember rightly, that young man was only about 6'1".
That's still tall, right? Compared to.
Well, the centre that was playing for his team in that year, George Murason was the name of this gentleman, 7'7" tall, and I'm lucky enough to stand reasonably close to that gentleman. Oh my Lord!
Wow,
skyscraper. And then we went up to San Francisco and took in a Golden State Warriors match against the Phoenix Suns, which had a Jason Kidd was in his final few years, so it was a real. I feel very blessed and privileged to have seen some of the greatest athletes of that sport from that era.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That would have been the closest thing I've come to an NBA game. It wasn't even an NBA game, but I was 10 years old, and my parents and I and my brother were walking through Altair Square in Auckland, and we were heading towards a telethon, which was put together because of the cyclones that were happening in Samoa.
Oh, yeah.
I somehow ended up backstage in sort of the curtain where you enter into the television studio, the guests come through. And I remember sitting in front of me was like a chest, and I can't remember what it was doing, but I was so taken by it, I didn't realize the guy was standing next to me, and it was Hershey Hawkins, and he was huge, he was tall, and I wondered where I was, but it was quite funny because when I think back to it, we walked past the makeup, we walked past everybody, and no one stopped us. I remember Herbs was playing on stage, and Hershey Hawkins was about to come on stage as the guest American person, and I could just see through the curtains Herbs just wrapping up their number, And I turn around and I'm looking up at this gentleman. And it's huge. That was the only thing. I think Jazz has been to a couple of
Oh, right.
games,
Yeah.
New York Knicks games, when she was living over there in New York. But yeah, no, that's the
Lucky
closest. That's as close as I've ever been, and probably will ever be. So there's a couple of warm up questions. The big question that I'm gonna hit you with, and you can take time answering this, but you might find it really easy to answer actually. What is Mike's philosophy on life and or values? What's your framework built around?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, brother.
And I think just to give you a bit of a heads up, I thought that I'll come out. I'm a big believer that people have a framework of values that they live by, even if they don't know what they are.
Yes, sir.
So putting a question out there about your philosophy gives me an opportunity to go back into maybe where it had developed or where it had come from at a younger age or an earlier stage in life.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Excellent question. I think for me personally, I was fortunate enough so I was raised in Purirua,
Yeah.
in Wellington, Aotearoa. Anybody who knows anything about Purirua knows that it's a town with a story, a history, and even a reputation,
Yeah.
be that good or bad. I had these two conflicting experiences when I was young. I saw life from a hard, low socioeconomic, tough environment, people struggling to survive. I also had an opportunity to spend time with my ancestors, with my grandmother and my grandfather and my aunties and uncles who were still very deeply connected to a Maori way of life and Maori way of living.
Hold on. Can I just get you to pull the mic closer?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Because this is getting good. I don't want people to miss out. But
okay.
Yeah, so you spent some time with your grandmother.
Yeah, so you get to see the worst, to experience the worst and the best in people at a young age. But I think I made a conscious decision only based on the fact that I was raised by my mother. No dad. Well, I was very young when he left. And in a Māori, well, I guess this may be consistent with a lot of not only Polynesian cultures, but ethnic cultures right across the world. The women run the show.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. So I was taught, shown what it's like to care for people, to raise a child, to raise, regardless of the circumstances or how tough things were going to get. I watched these amazing women fight through adversity to offer us grandchildren, nephews, nieces, an opportunity to thrive and survive. And I think when I was watching all of this play out as a young man, and given the fact that I was already the oldest in the family, so it was my responsibility to look after brothers and sisters. My whole life philosophy has been around raising and nurturing good, kind, decent people who are going to go out into the world and spread that same, that same kind of that feeling. Because when you've had to sit through the indignity of watching human beings do some terrible things to one another, you will either go one or two ways. You're either going to become that monster that you're watching, or you're going to do everything you can to avoid it. And then at a very young age, I think because I was a nurturing person innately anyway, it was shown to be my grandmothers and my aunties and my mother. That became a real blueprint for how I wanted to live the rest of my life. I watch these people be in service.
Yeah.
to their families, to their community. It was a huge inspiration to me, and to watch these people do this day in, day out under the most extreme circumstances.
Yeah.
For me, I used to just marvel at how you can, you can find it in yourself, despite what you're going through, to do your best for those ones that are around you, to nurture, to care for. And it just became something that it became a lifelong philosophy for mine, probably to my detriment. And we'll probably touch on that a little bit later. But I think if you ask me what this man stands for, it always has been to ensure the continuation, or the development, really, of us, of me as a person, and of the people that I had the privilege to come in contact with, to offer the very best of what I have, based on what I got shown when I was a young man. Yeah.
So you're nurturing and the values of compassion and just hard work and
Look, I'll share a quick one with you, brother.
Yeah.
My mother, she used to, I marveled, even though we didn't have anything, we were very, very poor, and she struggled. I watched this woman night after night walk, maybe 5 to 7 kilometers at midnight to go to the train station to catch a train a half an hour into Wellington.
Wow.
To work all night at a container terminal cleaning, while I was at home looking after the little ones. And to watch her train back and then walk all the way back home, tired, on the bones of her knees, but do this year in, year out. When you see that sort of example of, resilience, determination, and her drive was to ensure that we had what she never had, and to help us avoid, or maybe find a life that we could be happy with, as opposed to what we were sort of experiencing in those days down there. So what I always think about that time, watching my queen do that. I put my mind in her mind, what she was feeling, all her fears, all her worries, the pain that was going through her, as she was struggling to walk down to that station every night. She was so tired. I look at the example of people like this, and I'm just thinking to myself, okay. Yeah. I want to be like this person. And I want to be able to, I think, continue that legacy of my mother, and then give that on to the next person. I think it's been a driving force for me since I was a young man. So.
Yeah. What are some of the downsides of I can think of some, like, witnessing somebody with resilience and tenacity. And did you have any downsides to that? Were there things that, I guess, in your life presently, as an adult, were there things that you should have addressed that you sort of, put on the back burner because you just had to go, and how did that play out? and this is me playing devil's advocate for a second, because those attributes are actually something that's lacking in our young people today, that they need calloused hands, I think, sometimes, and just resilience to be able to withstand, and just be determined and be tenacious, and all of those sorts of things that I find that in my dealings, of course, but, in yours probably as well, young people just fold under pressure, and it might take a word or two, and they won't be back the next day, or back to school, or wherever it is. But yeah, they seem to make mountains out of molehills. But resilience in terms of, does it have a negative effect from your dealings? Like, have you stepped back to think about that?
Yeah, it absolutely does. A lot of that will depend on, the individual that we're talking about.
Yeah.
For some people, I may be one of these very people, but you become so obsessed with the job. In my mind was to make sure that I look after my brothers and sisters, that I make sure that I look after my cousins if they were around. Anybody really, it didn't really matter. My mother, I used to. There was a time where I think I was only 11 or 12. Can't quite remember, but on one such couple of nights, my mum got sick and she couldn't go to do that job. So I walked off into the night to go and do that job for her.
Wow.
I think if there is a negative, is that you can end up throwing, depending on your personality, you throw your everything at the cause. The cause is to help the next person. There's no greater cause than that.
Yeah.
You will throw your everything at it, at great personal cost. If it comes to that, and a lot of that has to do with, I don't want to see somebody else have to experience what I experience. So my needs are not important anymore.
It's the greater good.
It's the greater good. Well, that does come. I'm learning as I'm getting older. I'm 56 now. You would think that people get a little bit wiser as they get older, but often that's not the case.
Yeah.
But you can push yourself beyond the point where you think you're giving, but you're actually draining from yourself. And I've actually had to learn a very hard lesson on that recently. So there are definite setbacks and negative aspects to it. I think it's just how one manages themselves, the support network that's around them. It's a tough thing.
How have you? Well, tell us a bit about. We'll move forward to sort of your adult life and working age, professional age. Because I know in our brief conversations, you've done a lot of work with young people. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure.
How'd you get into it?
Actually,
are you out of it?
No. Right from a teenager, really, I think I had been doing work with young people into my 20s. I had to grow up before I had to become a father when I was 7. By the time I was 12, I was not like any normal 12-year-old. And there are many, many, many thousands and millions of people like me. You didn't get the chance to grow up. So, you've just got to be a pillar of strength for your family, for your community if need be, whatever's required. And on that note, I think I had started to mentor and look after nieces, nephews, just people I found in my community at a very, very, very early age. It was kind of something that came natural. However, work-wise, I didn't actually start working in a professional sense with youth until I may have been 37, 8, I guess. It would have been around about then. And even then it was on a voluntary basis. As an at-home dad looking after my little boys, I decided I wanted to contribute to the education, their learning. So I decided to turn up to the schools and just volunteer my time. I ended up falling in love with every other child that was in that room, didn't I?
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And that speaks to the character. And probably the circumstances surrounding the situation at the time as well. All those other factors. But to, off your own back, go down to the school and see it fit to contribute. Like, volunteering is almost isn't not almost a cuss word, but like
It's rare these days.
yeah, exactly. Unless there's some big payoff at the end, and I guess the education of your boys and the long term knock-on effects, like what they see you do, without having to have money exchanged. Because a lot of young people I speak to, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be some sort of profession that makes millions and millions of dollars. But the motivation there, or it's either money or fame or material things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the knock-on effect in your mind going into a situation like that is for your boys to witness you doing something selfless, which often I have as well. To be very honest, and there have been borderline moments where I'll be honest about it. I'll have a moment. I remember I was at a petrol station, and I was with my daughter, and there was a elderly couple who couldn't afford the petrol, and they were having a sort of an argument. Being a Samoan, they were Samoan elderly people. They were,
okay.
I could understand what they were talking about just briefly, but they were very, very good at hiding, smiling and having a conversation that was the opposite of the smile. Anyway, I said I'd pay for the petrol, and they were thankful for it. And I didn't really think about it. My daughter was there with me. We got back into the car, and I thought, you know what, like, I hope my daughter sees that. Like, I never thought to do it because my daughter was with me, or because, whatever reason. I just remember sitting in the car going, I haven't really lost anything, $50 of gas, but my daughter gets to see, compassion and something good and right happen. Do you know what I mean? Like, I thought, man, you can't put a price on that. And it could have been me, it could have been somebody else. I just hope that a lot of adults that my children will gravitate towards will be of the same kind, in terms of, it's part and parcel of who they are. It's sort of a byproduct or an automatic function that just happens. I say all that to just say, like, what you're doing for your boys, I that would have been hard.
Well, look, to be honest with you, bro, having had the opportunity to be raised around my ancestors, my tipuna, I've heard this saying bandied about for many a day. It takes a community to raise a child, which I've always found quite amusing when I hear this this phrase being coined. I remember one year at Beenleigh High, we used to work at Beenleigh High School as an engagement officer, and we had a person come in from Queensland Education and just to give a general talk about how you educate people, and one of the words this person used, one of the phrases, that they used was, it takes a community to raise a child. I remember going into my boss's office about a half an hour after that meeting, principal and another deputy principal, and asking them directly to their faces, listen, it was a great meeting, and I enjoyed what that gentleman had to say. I have a question for you. What's that, Mike? Okay, so this saying, it takes a community to raise a child. What does that mean? These people couldn't answer me.
Yeah.
They stumbled over their words. They could not actually answer that question. I was lucky enough as a young Polynesian Māori man, and I saw this amongst a lot of my Polynesian brothers and sisters as well with their families. We say it in our language, Māori, whakatirina mai ngā kōrero, which means to bring what your words are to life. If you're not going to do that, well, we just kupu anake, it's just words. Now this word compassion is used a lot, a lot of people. But it's an action. it's an action, and it doesn't require it doesn't require you to receive anything for it either. You either give it or you don't. But it's important. It was important for me to show to my sons that I wanted to support them in their educational journey. However, if the young people that they live with in their community around them are not as supported as my boys are, then I failed them. I have failed my sons. That's the way the way my mind works. It's of the opinion that everyone in their sphere, if I'm not working to make a positive change for everyone in that sphere, just my sons, they lose, I lose, we all lose. So I've really tried to keep that in the forefront of my mind in most of what I do. And so volunteering was really something that I knew my ancestors would have wanted me to do. So.
It's like they're saying the high tide raises all ships. It's funny. I think about that as you're talking about that, and I am thinking about my dad as well, who would be of the same thought. Like, not just you who is my child and I want to elevate them and make sure they succeed, but those who surround you as well. Like, it's almost, it's counterintuitive in today's age.
Absolutely. Look, brother, if I was able to get my boys' ships up and sailing smoothly, but nobody else's was, eventually theirs will sink. That's just the way I look at it anyway. I'd rather try and develop everybody else that's around them as well, and that way we all go together. We can overcome a lot more obstacles in front of us together that way, rather than just have one excelling and taking off on their own sort of thing.
Have you ever been close to burnout or brownout or whatever the terms are these days? How did you manage to rein yourself back, if at all? What's been the cost? And what sort of advice would you have for those who might be listening?
Yes, I did. I have indeed experienced burnout at great cost. Cost me my health. Almost cost me my life. 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with atrial fibrillation, which is it's a cardiovascular. Oh, not so much an electrical issue within my heart. It means that my heart won't pump blood around my body too well. So, my mission over the last 10 years with the young people that I was serving in the community, in the Greater Logan community, many of these kids who had experienced things that I saw. So I was eventually I was reminded. I saw images play back over in my mind of what I saw happen to me, and whether I wanted to accept it or understand it or not.
Were they similar events playing out?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes, sir. Some of them were. A lot of young people in our communities are just experiencing some terrible trials and tribulations, and there were some that I could definitely relate to. You can see it on their faces. They don't even need to say anything, but you could see it as they're walking in. You could just feel the whole energy from these poor young souls. So I became so determined to do everything I could to ensure that I could look after these young people, education-wise, maybe help stabilise their lives outside of the school grounds, put food in their stomach, brother.
So how far did you go? How far do you think? Because okay, I'll give you a bit of an instance. When I left university, I ended up working at a drug rehabilitation centre for adolescent youth, and I remember, and I grew up in an island family, tight family unit, It wasn't without its hard moments and times and things said and things done. But I remember where I worked, we had young people who were on bail to the house, and so they couldn't leave the premises, otherwise they'd be breaching the bail conditions. One of the girls left the building, and she absconded and went down, pretty much heading to the city. I jumped in my car, in my rookie, not thinking about it, because coming from a home, if that happens to someone in your family, you go after them.
Right.
And I didn't even think twice about it.
Right.
I had somebody else at the house. We had about probably 7 other adolescent youth there, and I jumped in my car, took off after her, found her, had her get into my car, and we drove back after her agreeing to take her medication that she needed to take. And I got back to the biggest bollocking from my boss that I had ever received in any professional sense. Like, she just threw the book at me and warned me about, obviously putting myself in that danger. Like, did you find yourself sort of probably not an example that sort of is at the at the magnitude of having to find some food and things? How far did you go in terms of, did you stay within the rules, or were you teetering on the rules? Did you get to a point where you just went self-preservation out the window?
Yeah, self-preservation totally out the window, brother. Look, listen, it was always said to me down at Beanie High School in the years I was down there, I was essentially a teacher aide. The name had changed a lot over the years. I became a community liaison officer, an engagement officer, whatever the name was. They decided that that was a school policy thing, whatever it was. But for me personally, I was the lowest paid guy there, right? But I spent most of my money feeding kids at the tuck shop. Kids, I knew they were hungry. I could see them coming, so I'd go and stand over there. I remember some staff saying to me, "Where your pay's going?" And I remember thinking to myself, "And what? This is not a question. This is just not a question." In a very similar experience to the one you had, there was a young Māori girl that had come over from New Zealand. She had been dumped. She was living pretty much on the streets. Her family had left her, and so she had to fend for herself. This young lady was only, at the time, year 10. When I caught wind of it at school, I went to see the young lady and said, "Look, honey, where are you sleeping tonight?" "I don't know, Uncle." The kids used to call me Uncle. "All right, well, I'll come pick you up, and you'll be coming home. We'll have a bedroom for you." I went up to the office to talk to the principal and let him know that this was the situation for this young lady, and with no place to stay for the night, this is what the solution is going to be. He then proceeded to tell me, "You can't do that. You're putting your job at risk. You're putting everything at risk." And this is the pig-headedness of this man that you're talking to at the moment. I said, "Fine, but under no circumstances am I going to let a kid sleep on."
I thought you were going to say something else. I thought you were going to say, "Fine."
Listen, look, there may have been some expletives used to describe. Because it's raw emotions are playing out on an individual when situations like that are happening with a young person. Oh, the emotions are quite raw, especially in someone like me. So I let my principal know. Listen, you do what you have to do. If that means letting me go, so be it, and I'll have to do what I have to do. Thank you very much. I never heard anything after that. As it turned out, my wife and I, we put up this young lady, got her stabilised, got her the right services, support mechanisms in place, She was good.
Mm.
Somehow I still managed to keep my job. I still don't even know how that happened. So,
And this would have been one of many cases, many young people that you would have, probably not to the magnitude, a lot of young people would be going through that, wouldn't it?
I was putting in myself in situations where I had violent fathers that wanted to have a go at me, and that's fine. I was not there to judge anybody else in their lifestyle. My whole mission was to stabilize the life of this child. I had to explain. The head office would pull me in and ask me questions about how I operated, how I was as a person. I had to explain to these people many stuff. When you have felt fear, when you have felt violence, when you have felt hunger, neglect, when you felt that, you fundamentally change as a human being, and your world perspective can change with you. You no longer look and see and think the same as many around you. And with that in mind, I was just, I had made a decision in my heart. This is the right thing to do for these people, to support them, and even if it costs you, so be it. And going back to your question earlier about the negative aspects of working in this role and being the sort of person that I am, there's one right there. I was prepared to do what I had to do to make sure that I served the young people as best as I possibly could, as best as I knew how to. Because for me at the time, I looked at the way systems were operating and I just felt to myself, this does not sit well with me, so I'm going to take a stand.
No, thank goodness you're taking a stand. I've got a number of questions, but I'm going to go back to, so the burnout came on through many of these sorts of situations playing to the detriment of your health, family, all of this stuff. How did you manage to pull yourself in or even recognize that you were at that point?
I didn't.
Did someone have to tell you? Was there an intervention or something?
Oh, one of those interventions was my heart failing on me.
Yeah.
That was a real uppercut. That was a knockout punch. That one was. I still didn't hear though, but I still wasn't listening, because no sooner had I got out of the hospital, on the very day I got out of hospital after receiving a procedure that was designed to correct my heart, I went straight back to where I felt I had to be, back with those kids.
Wow.
And I was even asked as I was walking in the door, "What are you doing here?" And I'm doing my job. Get away from me, leave me alone. And that was it. I was prepared to put myself in a box to do the job.
Is that is that, looking back on that, is that stubbornness? Or were you just that driven to see it through?
I am a stubborn individual. That's very much for sure. My wife will attest to that, and a lot of my family. A deep desire. I remember all the poor brothers and sisters I grew up in Porirua with. I remember sitting and breaking bread with some of these people, or what little we had, white, brown, didn't matter. I remember those struggles like they were yesterday. Waitangirua. I grew up in Waitangirua, up in on the top there, and So with that in mind, no. Listen, I just it's a real deep thing inside of me that this is your purpose. This is your life job. This is what you were brought here to do. And if it takes you back to the Father, if it takes you back to the Creator, if it takes me back to my ancestors, oh well.
That's dry. That's massive.
Or stupidity, depending on one's perspective.
I'm sure those on the receiving end of the care wouldn't have thought it was stupid. But So, the heart attack is intervention. What do you do? What do you do then, apart from go back? Do you have a series of health issues and health events that cause you to eventually slow down or wind back or leave a job or?
It was, look, I think eventually, as the years were rolling on and you pick up the next child, here's one statistic. In one school, I won't name the school in particular.
Welcome.
But
What does it sound like?
No, and so most of the schools I worked with, there were apart from one, there were children with high needs, right? In one of these particular high schools, it was 1 year, and this may have been 2018. The estimate come from our guidance counsellor was that 30 to 35% of the girls at our school had suffered sexual assault and some sort of sexual violence against them. Are you serious?
That's huge. Were you in the area that could be considered that number normal? Like, was it a cross section of the community the school placed in, or was it just was it just this is almost wrong?
Definitely the Logan. There are pockets of Logan that have these areas that are probably more prone to these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Beenleigh, Eagleby area, that's the area that I spend a lot of time working in. Yes, brother, it is a condition of the area, and a lot of that's got to do with the fact that you have a courthouse down in Beenleigh. You have a lot of drug addiction counselling services are all in Beenleigh, so you get a lot of people who suffer from these afflictions that they have to come into that community to get themselves tended to, and with that, you just see so many kids. So many kids with crack addiction, babies. I couldn't believe that one when I was supporting some of these kids that were crack babies. I would watch the behaviours play out, and I'd understand. You understood after a while. When a baby has got when a human born is born into this world, and they've got meth or crack running through their veins, they almost have no hope, no chance. That to me was just heartbreaking. I get a little bit worked up even thinking about that now, sort of thing. So yeah, it was a drive to just make sure that you do what you can.
Do you have any advice for people who maybe find themselves in your position, health-wise, or were there any mental health issues as a man going through a lot of things happening around you, or have they been a subsequent of your failing health?
I think, yes, I am a person that has been dealing with mental health issues for the longest time. I think as a child, when you watch extreme violence play out against women, against children, when you watch your cousins, your sister, when rape is around, babies. In Porirua through the 70s and 80s when I was a little boy. I was born in 1968, so a lot of my cousins and uncles, these were some of the initial members of the Black Power and the Mongol mob. So when you watch all of that, you were changed. You were really, really changed. And so I left New Zealand when I was 30. A lot of my decision to leave the country at that time was to escape, put behind, try and figure out myself, come to terms with a lot of what I had experienced and seen as a young child. So when I arrived in Australia, and I love Australia, listen.
What's not to love? I love Australia. I don't know why people still listen now. I won't go that far, but people have their reasons. But man, it's an amazing place.
Look, I found in my experiences, generally Australians to be a fun, happy-go-lucky, jovial people. My experience in the early days of arriving here in 1998, I met people that were prepared to give me a go, didn't really care about my background, didn't care about this or that. G'day, mate, let's get going. So you get swept up in that way of thinking. So I came to a much more positive environment, right? And then, so life became quite good, didn't it? Started to see things beyond what I had experienced. It was nice. It was really, really nice. My darling and I had our sons here, and in the early days, raising my own child,
Right.
it meant the world to me. In actual fact, my first son saved my life.
Wow.
If he
Tell us about that.
if he didn't come into this world, I don't know. I think my past may have caught up with me eventually,
Okay.
and the mental side of things would have worn me down too much.
30-ish?
About 35 when my boy arrived.
Wow.
So, yeah, I used to, at Christmas time, I used to sit and drink by myself, cry to myself all the time. I'd put on a front to people, friends and workmates, but on my own time back home, I spent a lot of time and just crying, trying to make sense of everything that I had seen, and but that said, life became quite good. My boys became a real great focus, positive focus for me. They helped me get into the community and serve other kids. And then life just rocketed off from there on in. I just became a really happy person.
So having children is sort of cathartic, like it helped you
so.
have a therapeutics to deal with some of the things you've gone through.
Yeah. Gave me an opportunity to at least correct what I felt was some of the wrongs that I had experienced. I really was determined to make sure to get right what I missed out on, what a lot of my cousins and brothers and sisters missed out on. So, and I'm grateful to them for that. So, things are going on quite well. I start working in the primary schools. I start working in the high schools. This massive burst of energy is coming over me. I'm doing what I was built and made to do, was to support, stabilize, lift up a soul that's knocked down to the ground. Felt so good. As the years were rolling on, brother, 2017, 18, 19, I guess, my mother got sick, so I had to keep going back to New Zealand to look after her a bit. When you're back in the environments that you were raised and started to trigger a lot, right?
Yeah. Okay. So when we talk before talking about triggering, did you what would you suggest young men or men who find themselves experiencing some sort of post-traumatic stress situation, anxiety from an upbringing? What would you suggest they do? Like, do you have any sort of workaround in case we have someone listening or watching? Because we're surrounded by men we trust. Like, were you able to speak about this sort of stuff to anybody around you? Your darling wife. Were you able to speak to her about what had happened as a young person, or?
Not really. And even when I came to Australia, I used to have friends and Australian friends, and even Polynesian brothers and sisters that would ask me about my life, and it's hard to explain with people who haven't seen that, excuse the expression, the once were warriors life. You can't explain that to anybody in a way that they could understand it or even feel it. Oh, that movie! Yeah.
There are layers.
Yeah.
Layers that they'll never have experience in their life. Like, I understand what you're saying. Like, to see it on screen is just scratching the surface, but to feel it, being in the presence of something like that, is something totally different, because now you're talking about something that's spiritual. even
Good point.
mental. Like it's like everything seems irrational from the outside looking in, but it feels very real when you're going through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know exactly. It's
It shifts it. It literally rocks your soul out of your body at times when when you're seeing that. It literally does. I think if I was to meet a person like me going through something similar, and I could identify that was, I would really strongly advise to find uh, to not necessarily find. You don't necessarily need to find. Around you are great role models all around you. They're there. It's just being able to open one's heart and mind up. Often people like me and people who've experienced some of the things that we find it so hard to. How can you possibly know what I've gone through? What could I say to you that would make you understand? So we won't say anything. We'll just say nothing, and we'll go on thinking that no one can really help me out. But no, there are good people. And even people that did not necessarily experience the same things that you did. There's wonderful human beings out there that can become a pillar for you to lean on. You know, I rather than say to somebody, go and find it. No, I would strongly suggest to these people around you. They're there. There's great people. Try and find the strength within yourself to let that guard down just a touch, and then allow for some light to come into your darkness. Because we do live in a dark world, us people like me. We'll live in a very, very dark world. I actually mentioned this recently to a friend. I think in a lot of ways I was a fake human being for the last 15, 20 years. I'm out there supporting community. People think that this is a very strong, stable man. He's on charge. He's on top of everything. But the reality of it, no. Bubbling mess on the inside, struggling when he gets home in his own door to stabilize his own emotions and feelings around so many great things, but come back out when you have to be in front of the people. You just got to find a way to make a difference. And if it means the show goes on. Unfortunately, and this is wrong. I don't want to advocate this for anybody, but for me, I was thinking, yeah, it's okay for you to go down. Doesn't matter. You just got to get to the next kid. It's stupid.
I've got a deep conviction about that is in the detriment to your health. I can hear how you've gotten to this place, and some of you may not know, but Mike and I walk into this room the same way. Hunched over. I have no excuse. I'm 12 years younger than you, but you've paid your dues. Honestly, I can't. Yeah, I can't. I was hearing it over and over again in this conversation. The deep conviction that you have to the detriment of your body, your health. You're unlike most men, Mike. You're unlike most men. Like in terms of your character. Like a lot of people will take what you have and channel it into selfish things, or things that would be being selfish. You know what I mean? Like into things that are the future garage sales. You know what I'm getting at. Yet you are incessantly in pursuit of that intangible thing that that nurture, that care, that lifting up of a young person. That's crazy. And how did you get to that point, having gone through what you've gone through? Seriously, I think one of the things that our men suffer from, not all men, of course, but the large majority, is the ability to communicate. Um, off the bat, when I met you, and when I see you meeting other people, there's no, you know what I mean? There's no bravado, no macho man right there. Like, I feel ashamed sometimes, like I'll stand there and this is the dialogue, and you can judge me if you want. All sorts of stuff if you don't want to hear it. But when you're in a group with men and you're waiting for the first person to make the move, and in your mind you're like, well, what do I have to say hi?
Yeah.
What do I have to put my hand up, say hi, shake his hand? But yeah, then you are, Mike. Like you bring people together, like just purely by being this ball of energy that just doesn't suck the air out of the room. It actually provides more air, right? More freedom, and more space to move, and less, less. It brings down walls. It's probably the best way I can say that. How? Where does this come from? And like my concern, my concern is that I don't know. Like if you've dealt with it, you've dealt with it. But I worry for you, brother. Like in a way that goes, where's this? Has this been dealt with? Or is it being channeled somewhere else? Like, are you going home and destroying boxing bags or something? I don't know. You just seem. Are you chewing on iron bars or something like that when you get home?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's very rare. And like I said, like weird conversations, I often walk away going, yeah, it's like Mike reads my thoughts. Like we sort of see the world in a similar way, in a similar perspective, but you seem to have a better grip of executing than I do. And it's probably the 12 years different, but you seem to have done more, obviously more Ks. But yeah, you just, man.
Well, a lot of people that know me, brother, they
not in a bad way, but like you, like a master, like you just like efficient with your words, but exactly when and what to say is.
Apart from the life experiences at a young age, that will set most people up really for a foundation for their life, really, where they're going, what they experienced, what they saw, to some degree, I believe. And especially if you've gone through, harrowing experiences, really tough experiences, it's either going to set you up one way. You're either going to go to prison, or you're going to pretty much do what you can to serve, to try and correct what had happened to you. As a young man in my at high school, history was a lesson I was really, really fascinated with. So I started to understand the workings of the great Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King, and these to a lesser extent John F. Kennedy, and a lot of what he did in and around the time of some extreme tumultuous period within American history in terms of their race relations and whatever, So, and with Mahatma Gandhi, what he experienced with in India, and I watched these men. There's two of our elders from Taranaki called Tohu Kākahi and Te Whiti o Rongomai, and in the 1800s, these two men had converted to Christianity, and in a huge significant event that took place in Parihaka in New Zealand, the British forces just confiscated the land, and they marched on to these people's marae, took their children, took their wives. It's a long story, but it's not a nice one. Anyway, these two gentlemen who were the leaders of these people, they had a peaceful resistance philosophy. When these soldiers arrived, they sent their children with food out to greet them. They did a hakapohiri for these people who were about to come and remove them forcibly from their land. The day before Dr. King was shot, he delivered one of the most incredible speeches I've ever heard in my life. And he knew that in one of his quotes within his speech, he said, he was talking about his people, about the fight in front of them, we're going to get there. And he said, I might not make it with you to the promised land. My people, I might not, but we've got to keep going. Phenomenal. These people were prepared to put themselves in harm's way to lift up the mana the the well-being of others.
Mm.
I used to look at that as a young man and think, wow, yeah, man, these are my heroes. These are my heroes, these people. So, yeah, I have just been driven ever since. In 2007, so I had started being a teacher aide. I had got a call from a dear friend and a mentor to come and drive trucks in Kalgoorlie on a mine. Okay. $140,000 a year was the salary for this particular job in that year. So I got called up, and I thought, okay, well, that's a good idea. I can do that. Or financially, my wife and I, we're not, we're just battlers like everybody is, and that'll be a good thing. A few days before I was meant to go, I looked at my sons and thought, can you handle being away from them for 3 weeks at a time? Is that what you're about? Will that money make up for that? Or are you going to stay here and be a dad that you never got? You never got a dad. You had no experience what it was like to have a dad. And I just felt at that time, if I go over there and accept all that money, it will come at a bigger cost than I could ever imagine. So I made the decision. I rang them up and cancelled it. Oh, my brother, you should have heard the discussion, some of the things that were, are you serious? Are you crazy? Bro, this is 100, whatever it was. Listen, wrong guy, not motivated by money, the welfare and security of my boys. In terms of having a present father to help guide them day in, day out, meant more to me than any dollar figure. And I grew up poor. I'll get through this life poor if I have to. No problem. As long as I can elevate my boys mentally, spiritually, that way, no dollar figure can give that to me. So I just turned my back on it. And a lot of my family thought I was absolutely stupid and ridiculous because we've lived a very humble life since. And I wouldn't change a thing.
Oh, yeah. It's funny how much weight we put behind financing and chasing those things when we're really missing out on the opportunity, like they say, of being present fathers. And I'm speaking mainly to dads and, guys who chase big dollars, big money. I spoke with, someone in a similar situation. Had to go see a psychologist because he had to come back to his family and re-enter his family in such a way that they would have him.
Right.
And it was unbelievable to me what had happened. Like, it's just unbelievable to me. First of all, that he didn't expect this to happen.
Yeah.
Of course it's going to happen.
It's going to happen, yeah.
They don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Like, and he said, by the time I'm settled in, it's time to go back. And so he sees a psychologist. They talk about his, reintroduction or his arriving and leaving, and it's it takes a toll. It just takes a toll. You got kids who dad's not around. Mum, can only do what she can do but the presence of a father is so underestimated and undervalued.
It's the reason why a lot of my peers, a lot of my cousins, a lot of my family, especially the young males, ended up in prison. Without male guidance, particularly in those in your teen era, without male guidance, firm, solid male guidance, caring male guidance, they're almost lost if we're not careful. So I was not prepared to compromise on that for any dollar figure in the world. And that came at a cost financially to me and my darling, but I don't know. I have a more spiritual, philosophical feel about, feeling about all of this. That what's due will come back to me one way or another in this life or the next. I'm good.
Wow. Yeah. So probably another massive conversation so far, the listeners' generation, and the lack of defense with that. But yeah, certainly you can't put it past it.
No, and if I can just quickly, but I just wanted to let anybody that may be hearing this, if you're a man and you have to be going out to wherever it is, whether it's a mine, whatever job that removes you from your children, I am in no way, putting down what you do. I support you, brothers. I do, sisters, if that's you as well too. Absolutely. But we understand that there's a trade-off in everything in life, right?
Yes. And often find out we're not ready for it when it's too late. But good point, because people still have to make a living.
You got to do what you got to do for your family. Absolutely, yeah.
I've got to do what I've got to do. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about now. What does a week look like for you? What does it entail? And then we'll talk about something that I discovered when we last talked. I didn't even know you were looking into, but what does a week look like for you? Typical.
I am, unfortunately, at the moment, my health issues have become a little bit overwhelming to the point where I cannot work anymore. Up till last year, I was a carer. So once I left the education system, I went on to care for and work in the disabilities field. And a lot of the clients, I decided I wanted to push myself as a carer and serve a young person, male or female, didn't matter, who had real serious needs that they had to adhere to, non-verbal, or I wanted to find kids that I had to, feed, clean, walk in a park, talk to, sing to, just because I had spent so much time with sort of able-bodied children. I thought, no, I'm going to get back this way now. I'm going to try and flip the script and go in that field. But once again, last year, the heart really gave out on me to the point where I can't even do that now. Well, I work 1 day a week now as a carer for a beautiful young autistic 16-year-old boy. Beautiful young soul. Physically, I don't have to do much, which enables me to work with him. I think even then, I might get through about 4 or 5 hours, and then I've got to really sit back and relax. Sit down, or I will fall down.
Wow. Just quickly, I'm just going to deviate a bit. How did you meet your wife?
My sweetheart. We met in Wellington. My darling is Samoan. She was born and raised in Christchurch. She moved up to Wellington, and so she was working with my first cousin. So in the 80s, whānau, if you're watching, and some of you may have experienced this, in the 80s, a lot of us office workers that work for the government, especially us males, we would ring around to our female cousins in their offices. Are you guys having drinks on Friday night? Can I come? Have you got any girls up? You know the story, brother. Yeah. So, and then my Samoan queen walked through the door one night, and I was absolutely smitten with her. We've been together 30 years next month. 30 years. So,
So it was done deal from that moment on?
I knew the moment I laid eyes on this woman, I just fell head over heels in love with this person. She actually told me to. I won't use the language on because I approached her. I was a little bit of. I was a brash guy. Had a little bit of confidence about me.
Yeah. What did you? What?
So I rocked up to her and said, "Listen, after we get married, we'll have some children together, and I'm going to take you around the world." And she sort of stopped and looked at me. She said, "Excuse me, what did you just say?" I sort of repeated everything I said. She said, "Listen, you are a dreamer, you're a little bit of a joke, and you need to go away." And I thought, yeah. Anyway, and then she said, "Look, I've got a boyfriend, so, this is, you're funny, and you need to, go away." And I thought, okay, yeah, no, that's good. Listen, after we've worked through the boyfriend, so this is a cocky like that. I remember her laughing at me thinking, this guy is a joke. But I would see this lady every week at the same spots. So we'll try my lines again, and she'd always tell me to,
Yeah.
where you go.
Anyway.
Until a few months later, and all of a sudden, I thought, hold on. I didn't realise that there maybe have been some underlying issues going on, or maybe I may have been a catalyst for some sort of change within it. I'll take that approach. I was better than the other guy, and I eventually won her heart over, and we've been together.
He got the heave-ho.
He got the heave-ho. He was a better bloke than I was too, this guy.
Man, you're game. You're game. Wow. Wow. Okay, and that was in Wellington.
In Wellington, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys ever live in Auckland?
Yeah, no. I hadn't even really been to Auckland until I was in my 20s. I'd never even been up there.
Wow.
And that was to fly out of the country.
Yeah. This is the pop in to get out.
Yeah, well, there were no family up there. Wellington, Porirua was our world. If I wasn't in Porirua, I was back up on the east coast. So if you go to Gisborne and go a few hours up the east coast to a place called Ruatoria, that's where my Ngāti Pro, the people that I'm from, we come from up that way. So if I wasn't in Porirua, that's what I would have been up there. I hadn't even been down to the South Island, hadn't even been up to Auckland before. So, yeah.
Wow. I just wanted to ask, and we can go in deep as time will allow, or, if you want to sort of have this conversation, or we can even shoot something different at a later time.
Yeah.
But cryptocurrency.
Oh, yes, brother. So I sort of diverted a little bit. I do that a bit. I got on to looking at alternative forms of income stream. Actually, in 2007, I had seen an advertisement that was teaching people how to read and interpret charts, stock charts.
Stock charts, yeah.
And I found that was quite interesting. And I figured to myself, okay, well, this could be a way that we could maybe further ourselves financially. So we did a course on data analysis. It was a wonderful course. But then as I got to understand the financial markets and how they worked and how money worked, it's a little bit put off by what I discovered. I thought, well, I actually don't like this world. It's really, and it's a thing that followed me a lot in my life. If you had offered me money in pathways towards money, I was often going to go and walk in the other direction because I sort of had a philosophy about what come with money, so to speak. Anyway, as I got sick in 2019, 2020, not able to work as much, I had to really focus my mind. Okay, so what's the alternatives? And I was fortunate enough to meet a very learned gentleman at St. Francis High School where I taught and coached. This man used to run the economics and finance accounting lessons at the high school for the senior school. And this man was quite brilliant, and he started to have chats with me about this emerging technology that came up. And he mentioned the word blockchain technology to me. And I thought, well, no, I don't even know what you're talking about, mate. Oh, cryptocurrencies. Oh, that's scamming stuff. Yeah, that rubbish. In my ignorance. It's incredible in my ignorance. Without having researched a single thing, I had already predetermined this was a scam. It wasn't worth anything.
Yeah.
Well, when you're wrong, you're wrong. He encouraged me to have a deeper look. But the way in which he encouraged me to have a look at this particular emerging technology, some will say a very disruptive technology, and I believe it is when you have a look at the facts around it. Once I dug deeper, I started to see an avenue for normal, everyday people. We have been excluded from access to financial markets and how they work forever. For as long as financial markets have been in place, it has only been the playing field of the wealthy, for obvious reasons. And they've kept it that way. Along comes this disruptive, emerging technology called Bitcoin, or aka cryptocurrencies, after the term cryptography. Okay, it's a science. And then an offering was made to the world whereby, hold on, we are no longer at the hands and at the whim, at the control of some of these huge financial institutions, some of these oligarchs that really run and control a lot of our world at the moment. Here's an option that we can explore that gives self-sovereignty of your money, your wealth, and control back to the individual. Now, I found that intriguing. And as I looked deeper and dug deeper, what I found, for me personally, I thought, wow, okay, this is going to change the world. It's going to change the world for the better, I believe. So, yeah. And so since then, I have been, I sort of dove headfirst into understanding not so much the technical aspects of it. You need to be a computer scientist, a mathematician, these sorts of people to understand the intricacies and the technical aspects of it, as I said. But from a broader perspective, the implications of the technology on the broader community and us as people, on the world, that became extremely interesting to me, from the sense that we can start to get some control back. If you have a look at what happened in the 2007 market crash, which was a subprime mortgage market crash, a lot of that was around practices involving all our banking institutions and our financial institutions, which were not good. These practices were designed to keep us down here and keep the balance of wealth and power in the hands of some of these institutions. I mean, as a prime example, some of these banks who failed in that year, and they failed because they gave out mortgages to people who couldn't pay them back.
I heard of some strange cases where young kids were able to get mortgages.
I mean,
like teenagers who were, they had no credit rating and give them mortgages.
Absolutely crazy.
But it does sound appealing, the whole decentralization of banks and
decentralization. Yeah,
it's it is an interesting. I think that's what sort of piqued my interest in not blockchain, just understanding the consequences or the ramifications of a decentralized bank. Like a lot of questions pop up, like, okay, so is the money worth anything? Like, how do we give it worth or value? Like those sorts of things. That's what really caught my interest, and then seeing companies who had coins and were establishing transactional ways of doing business that didn't necessarily need a bank or just cut out the middle.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think I'm trying to say the bigger thing for me is I think there's a gap with onboarding people.
Yes.
I think it's
Agreed.
the biggest thing, like I said to you, 14, 17 years ago, they were selling, someone said to me, buy some Bitcoin. What is that? It's this thing that hangs up here, and it's that, and this, and the other. People had stories about buying pizza, Bitcoin, and what do I have to do? They're only $1 each. Like $1 each at the time, and I thought to myself, I remember I had $9, and I thought, I wouldn't even give you $9. You have not stated the case, like compelling enough for me to hand over what I had in my pocket, or on my card. At this point, that's okay. And then it takes off like it does. I just think, man, if there was a process in terms of getting the average person to understand, because to the average person, it's just like, yeah, gobbledygook.
Absolutely.
It means nothing. It means nothing until you show me how it works and what it means. And we're so bound on that thought. We're so bound by regulations and legislation, aren't we? Like we need to. Like I just had this thought. Like I think it's almost like we need to feel restrained to feel like something is real. Like that's so crazy. Like you have to be nailed to the wall. They should go, oh, okay. This is normal.
Cryptocurrencies has been around. It's on a 17-year journey now. I think that is to say. Starting with the granddaddy Bitcoin, whatever you not. There's a two-pronged approach at what you're talking about there, bro. With regards to the wider adoption of cryptocurrency, and I prefer to use the term blockchain technology when I'm talking about cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies often gives off a vibe. It often gives off the implication that you're talking about a monetary value, which you are in a way, but really,
And that's why I want to talk about it, because it's not for what probably most people think.
That's right.
We're going to talk about, which is like overnight, get rich quick, pull your money and leave,
Absolutely.
or overnight lose everything.
Absolutely.
It's something actually different. You seem to have delved deeper into blockchains than I have, and that's what piqued my interest about that. What do you know? What do you know, Mike?
I think, okay, so the purpose of let's go back to 2007, that subprime mortgage banking collapse. As a result of that, billions of dollars was printed up by the US government to then feed back into all those banks, Fannie Mae, all of them, to stabilize the economy. Now, these are all centralized entities. A bank is a centralized entity. That means when your money is put into a bank, it's in one spot. It's on their computer server. It's in a very central location. The issue there, family, ladies and gentlemen, the issue there with a centralized entity is that it can be manipulated by that entity. It can be hacked because it's a one spot that a hacker needs to go to for starters. And number two, the owners or their central organization that are in charge of your particular money have ultimate say over everything that's involved there. Your money really, in a sense, doesn't really belong to you. Doesn't belong to you. And just quickly to go back to, you sort of mentioned quickly about how you're talking about the perception that there's no actual value associated to cryptocurrencies, and I understand that. However, when we're dealing in the economic times that we're dealing with now, I believe in 2020, something like 30, don't quote me on these stats, something 30 to 40% of the total monetary supply that ever existed in history was printed right there and then.
Yeah.
Okay. We went off the gold standard so there's no backing of all this printed money at all. So whenever I hear people say to me, what's that garbage
You're
stuff
talking about
backed
the
by?
value of money being attached to gold,
For folks that don't understand, the gold standard was separated. The gold value was separated from money. I can't quite remember the year now, but it was a long time ago. Which then means that, and especially when you have the Federal Reserve, the International Monetary Fund, and some of these huge organizations that just have the right to print up as much as they want when they want, and we saw that 4 years ago. 30 to 40% of the entire monetary supply printed up just there and then, backed by nothing.
I have heard that. I've heard they printed more money in the last decade or so than they ever have.
Ever in history. So no wonder we're all going to the shops to buy a loaf of bread that didn't cost what it cost 2 years ago. A pound of butter that did not cost what it cost 2 years ago. So therein lies the actual proof, ladies and gentlemen, that we are dealing with monetary supply that can be controlled and tampered with. That's what you call a centralized system. The decentralized world that you speak of, it's an exciting one. It's one that's owned by us. We have we say in Māori tonga, we have the saying for tino ranga tiratanga, self-sovereignty. You see it on our flag everywhere. I equate the emergence of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, at least in relation to finances, I equate this to self-sovereignty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a massive leap. That's a massive leap. And when you put it like that, you have to have the same level of courage. Almost, you feel like to actually buy into it or jump on board. And and see that as go.
You absolutely do have to have courage and conviction on what it is you be well educated and really go through your processes with. Really, let's be honest though, any market that you're dealing with, whether it be gold, silver, bonds, stocks, currencies, makes no difference. If you're not going to take the time to educate yourself, you will lose that much. It's guaranteed.
Where do we start, Mike? If you're someone who's wanting to get into it, a lot of research, a lot of getting around people who have a track record of success or understanding around blockchain and
Yeah, that's another great question, bro. So 4 years ago, when I started up on this journey, I was lucky enough to have a mentor that encouraged me to the terms DYOR, huge within cryptocurrencies and really investing as a whole. Do your own research. It's paramount. That way, you cannot blame anybody else
it's
for your.
impossible though. It's almost
Yeah.
impossible. Like I have read and listened to a lot of stuff.
Yep.
A lot of fear mongering.
Yep.
A lot of propaganda cap information. Like so many people going, today's the day.
Yep.
Tomorrow. All of a sudden, where do you start? Who's a reputable? Who's a trustworthy? Who's a trustworthy source?
Okay, so for me personally, when I started off in 2020, late 2021, I decided I wanted to listen to the people that were developing these protocols, not the people that were marketing them. Oh, there's plenty of those people around.
A lot of marketers.
Oh, yeah. And there's a whole lot of noise that comes with it. Distraction. Here, look over here. And then I'll take, look this way, and then I'm going to take them over here. So I did spend a lot of my initial months, even the first year, listening primarily to the people who were developing these protocols. And I found almost to a person, these people had strong moral and ethical values about them because they were not there to try and create your next meme coin that's going to make you $1 million tomorrow with $5 put down. All of that noise. I wanted to listen to the science. I wanted to listen to the scientists, to the people that were building and constructing. Even though I didn't know what they were talking about, I still wanted to get a basic. First of all, I wanted to get an idea. So what's your vision? Where are you going with this? What are you looking to achieve? Cool. Once I had established that in my mind, then it was about looking about some of their processes and in terms of how I use it every day. Now, I had to realize pretty quickly I'm not a mathematician and I'm not a computer scientist. When they went on those sorts of tangents, I had to sort of, I'm out of my league here. But some of the protocols that these people built and designed, I studied, I learned, and the key is to be able to discern the type of information. You alluded to it. There's a ton of it out there, and most of it, 90% of it, is noise. If you go to Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, or whatever, noise for the most part. You have to be skilled enough and determined enough to be able to, and patient, to put in the work to understand. But one thing I would strongly suggest for everybody listening to this now, if you're dealing with a person who's talking about price appreciation, about price movements, stay away. I would strongly suggest stay away from that. They will certainly bait you in. But being a new emerging technology, and it's a technology that has put the fear of God into most of the large financial institutions in the world, because they can see that their holdings are going to be depleted, because people are going to say now, wait, I don't have to, wait, you're giving me what return? Okay, but if I educate myself and I do well, I can earn this for myself? Or thank you, I don't need to come back to you anymore. Well, that's become a bit of an issue, which is why onboarding that we were talking about, onboarding has become an issue not only in terms of the technology being a little bit difficult to implement and people for like everyday people to use, but governments and a lot of these financial institutions that support governments through their through their financial backing, they are able to have regulation passed that put huge roadblocks up for normal people like us to be able to get in. That's been a real big thing lately. It's changing. So, yeah.
Man, it is an interesting area.
Oh, fascinating. I think it's fascinating. I think the implications for humanity, I am actually very, very excited about this. For humanity, I think I believe in my heart of hearts. It's not the only thing. People still, it doesn't matter what technology emerges in the world. People push it, right? People drive it. Yeah. And people are people. Yeah. Nefarious and dark actors are everywhere you look. So
Yeah, not just in Netflix.
yeah.
Yeah. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. And where there's a buck to be made and a soul to take advantage. Yes.
Yeah.
Play the numbers here. Some huge turn up. No, that's massive. I think that deserves another full on its own, because I would love to get into just a bit more about the onboarding side and the adopting, the transitions of it, because it does seem. But I remember hearing from I think it was someone was giving an economics talk at one of the universities in America, talking about it wasn't solely on this point, but they made a point about bank fees and like transaction fees. They are ripping you like the money that they all of a sudden attach to some of these transactions that will be made through blockchain. It's just ridiculous. Like the money you will save and able to be in control of was another thing. Your finances, like your money will actually be your money.
In your control, although I do really want to stress to anybody that's thinking about embarking on a journey, to understand and start using cryptocurrencies, investing generally requires a great deal of maturity, financial literacy, and responsibility on your behalf.
Of course.
If you are not responsible with your education and you lose, good job. You've got what you deserve. Sorry if that sounds harsh, but that's the way it is. And at least in a decentralized world, which is what we're going to be, what's on offer with this blockchain cryptography world, you have the opportunity to be able to look after your own money, decide for yourself where your money and your wealth goes. But once again, with that comes the responsibility. Well, you better take responsibility to educate yourself, make sure that everything is secure and that you know what you're doing, because you will lose it just like that if you're not careful. So, but it wouldn't matter whether that was crypto or anything, really. It's the same philosophy.
Any final words, Mike? We are on a platform that will obviously be around a lot longer than we will ever be. And so just in terms of final words, maybe and this is not like I'm not taking you saying your actual final words, but like, what would you like to say at this very point in time in life? What would you like to express to maybe loved ones or work colleagues or people that you know?
Well, I tell you what, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to each and every person that helped me along my way on my journey, that picked me up when I was down, that nourished my soul when it needed nourishing. It's meant a big deal to me. It's meant that you feel a big responsibility to give that back to the next person, to hand on. And I think therein would be, if there was anything I was going to impart on somebody. The other day I sent some crypto to a young man that I wanted to get him on his journey. He's got a aspirations of going over to play rugby in the States, but he needs to get a little bit of money. And so I got together with this young man and we had a bit of a chat around cryptocurrency, got him started, got his
registered on some exchanges so he can buy and purchase his cookie. And then I sent him a bunch of it. And he wouldn't accept it at first. He said, "Oh, no, Uncle. Well, no, I can't." I said, "Well, no, yes, you can. This is my gift to you. But you got to give it back to somebody else. Like, you to pay it forward, I guess, if that's the term. I don't like coining those phrases because they're said too easily. But you got to give that back, young man. Somebody else is out there waiting for you one way, one day. And you'll know that person when you see them. You make sure you do it." And he looked at me and said, "Okay, I promise." That's all I would say. Yeah. If you were lucky enough to receive, you've got to give back. You just got to. Yeah.
How can you know, getting a question like we talk about grace a lot, you know, to be able to receive something that you can earn and then think you can hoard it and hold on to it and not dispense with it for others so liberally and freely.
Yes.
That is messed up. But on that note, Mike,
thank you, brother.
Thank you so much for
Thank
this
you,
chat.
brother.
Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and hopefully we'll have that chat a little bit later.
Oh, it'd be my pleasure. And I appreciate everybody for listening.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you, brother.